world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, InRavio can get your message out there, and we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is InRavio.com.
Welcome to Nerdgasm. Now you're going to notice that this week things are a little bit different. Can you tell?
They took away our table because Joe kept hitting it.
No, Joe. The difference this week is I'm wearing a hat. Makes all the difference. You know, Peppercorn does it all the time.
Good times.
Peppercorn does it all the time. I'm realizing that, you know, to be more like him, start wearing the hat. Now this is a special episode on comedy fantasy. Our guest tonight will be Paul Guay. He was the writer and creator of Liar Liar. My panel with me tonight is Peppercorn Montgomery.
Hello.
Joseph Winchell.
I'm out of frame.
It's okay. Yeah, we're still getting used to this new set right there. Hey, there it is. You look like a villain in an Indiana Jones film. Well, let's hear it. Indiana Jones trying to take your goods, and you say to him,
"No, I'm all right."
Okay. Thanks for playing. So we're going to be dealing, like when I created the theme for this show, I was trying to think of different comedy fantasies that were, you know, amongst my favorite, and two we're going to be focused on Ghostbusters and on Men in Black, but two films that I wish we could have gotten into tonight was Groundhog Day and Galaxy Quest, which we'll have to save for another episode because I think there are, you know, stellar examples of
Galaxy Quest.
Comedy fantasies. So we're gonna have. I hope that's not your reaction when you look in the mirror.
Just like.
We can all see yourselves, you know, like, you know, for you at home, welcome everybody, welcome Paulie C, Wolf Boy, and Timmy Packer, of course, you know, to give you the layout. We have a couple of monitors in front of us, and one's with the chat room. We will not be typing today. We will just be trying to talk to you person to person. So, you know, it's like you're with us and you're...
That way our bad grammar is less noticeable.
Exactly.
But still noticeable.
So I would like to begin things, but before we really begin this, I mean, were there any news items in the geek world that you guys wanted to bring up, you know, before we dive into the Ghostbusters reviews and analysis?
They released the latest trailer for X-Men: Days of Future Past.
We're having a little problem. We're having a little technical problem with Joe's microphone.
And it looks awesome.
Days of Future Past.
Yes.
In
case you couldn't hear Joe.
Joe, to start talking again, I'm gonna dub you. Days of Future Past was an amazing looking trailer. I was very impressed. See, there we go.
That was a spot on Joe Winchell voice. You weren't drunk enough.
Hey.
Never is.
Is my mic off now too? What's going on here? Okay.
Your mic's like not pointed at your face.
It doesn't matter. My voice carries.
This show is starting off fantastic.
Tim's voice carries.
Yes.
That's true. My voice.
Am I okay?
My mic's actually on the camera across the room.
Hi.
Now that we've gotten the kinks out of this.
What was I going to say? Oh, yeah, the X-Men Days of Future Past, the latest trailer, the final trailer came out for it, and it looks, it's just awesome. It looks like, it's so cool. I don't know. I have no words to describe other than I really want to see this movie.
What is the release date of this?
It's May...
It's the end of May.
May 24th.
Yeah, so it's the next comic book movie we got. Or is it Spider-Man?
Spider-Man comes out first.
Spider-Man, then Godzilla, then Days of Future.
Yeah.
Are they trying
Face it, we're busy, May.
Are they trying to tie in Spider-Man to Avengers?
No.
To my understanding, there's a little post-credit tease that seems to link Spider-Man and Avengers at the end of Amazing Spider-Man.
That would be
That's
awesome.
not going to happen. That'd be awesome, but it's not happening.
Unfortunately, what do you call it? The Spider-Man rights are owned by Sony.
Yeah.
And then all the Avengers stuff is owned by Disney and Marvel. So, as awesome as that would be, and a huge moneymaker for both companies, I don't think it's going to happen, but I very much hope I am wrong. I hope you are correct, Dave.
I read. It's funny you mentioned this. I read something today. I was on IGN today after I got off work, and and they said there was an interview with somebody. I think it was what's his name? Avi Arad
Oh, yeah.
was saying, is there any hope of ever seeing Spider-Man in an Avengers film? And he said the only way that I think this would happen, right now anyway, is when Sony runs out of ideas. Then they will come to an agreement. Right now, since they rebooted the franchise, there's so much story to tell. You don't really need him to be in another. I mean, I want him in it, but you don't need him. And I guess that's coming from a financial standpoint, a money-making standpoint. And you and I have talked about this, Tim, about how if Spider-Man was in the Avengers movie,
it would have been awesome.
the amount of money that Sony would generate from that, but it's probably not going to happen.
Well, I think
not right now, anyway. Not
sadly, the way to expedite that is almost if the Amazing Spider-Man 2 bombed horribly.
Which I really don't want. I don't think it's
I
going to happen.
I don't think it will happen, and I
The trailer for that movie
don't want
was
it to happen.
insane.
But it'd be like if Sony was just like, "Wow, we really tanked that," and it was like, "Well, to make money, this is a sure thing." That would probably be the quickest path to that. But I don't see that happening.
Yeah, me too.
Well, the reviews that continue to come in do remind me. You guys are, no matter what, you guys are going to respond more positively to Amazing Spider-Man 2 than you did to Spider-Man 3. But there does continue to be parallels. Well, it's not out yet, but there does continue.
I have been reading the reviews also. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, but in the reviews, it's like on a Metacritic, the scores are almost identical to Spider-Man 3. For me, that's not a big deal because if you cut out Spider-Man 3's cheesiest parts, I can deal with it.
There was a lot of cheese.
Because there's a lot of cool things in there.
So good.
But
The dance sequence could have been cut.
Yes.
That whole montage where he turns evil
I think
and
That's the stuff I'm talking about.
Everything with Topher Grace can be cut.
yeah.
Oh,
Everything with Topher Grace can be cut.
too big of a Topher Grace fan to to be so negative on him.
I believe you.
I was up until that point.
Yeah. Okay. Let's delve into the first reviews of the show. We're gonna dissect Ghostbusters. Now I know with me, Joseph Winchell is, just like myself, is a major fan of Ghostbusters, and my feeling is
Ghostbusters.
It's the most successful crossover comedy mixed genre film that I've seen, and I would easily put this into my top 10. I think it manages to blend comedy, character, and actually when you look at it, I was just looking back at it today, one of the things that really impressed me is how well it is directed as a horror. Like the horror sequences, even though the focus is comedy, they're very well staged. The use of the camera, the use of the music, it pulls you in, on a story level. In a lot of comedies, scary movies and things like that, they don't really pull you in on a story level. They don't pull you in on a level of character. It manages to be grounded enough in reality to have you enjoy and relate these characters, and you somehow wind up rooting for these losers. Murray's a jerk. They all have these shortcomings. They're like this.
They're real people.
But yet you like them. You
They're
follow
real people.
They're hilarious.
They're flawed.
That's what I mean. No person is perfect. You root for them and you identify with them because I guarantee you, it's a brilliantly crafted group of 4 guys. You have Murray, who is
sardonic,
he's kind of like you say, he's kind of the jerk. He is. Bankman's kind of a jerk, but he's everybody kind of has that member of their friends, and you have the Dan Aykroyd character, who's just the best way to describe him. They describe him in the movie as the heart of the Ghostbusters, and it's a really great way to put it because he's so happy to be here, man.
Brings all the enthusiasm.
He's excited about everything, and I definitely have a friend like that. And you have Egon, who's kind of speaks, is there for rest in peace, Hal Ramis. Is the science guy. So he breaks everything down for people and everything like that. And he's also he thinks in a logical sense. So everybody has that kind of friend that thinks a little more logically and everything. And then you have Ernie Hudson, who technically you have three. Ernie Hudson's the everyman.
Yeah, because he's the non-science.
He's the guy that, he's
just doing it for a paycheck.
He's doing it, that's why that scene's so good. There's a steady paycheck in it, I'll do it.
But then he gets pulled into it. At first starts off as just a paycheck. Did you know, like, at one point...
He was overqualified.
At one point in production, you had Eddie Murphy that was going to be up for the Ernie Hudson role, and the problem was that the comedy shifted. The supporting character wound up getting too many good lines.
I don't believe Eddie Murphy was as famous as he is, not nearly as famous as he was now.
But
that was 84. He was...
Ghostbusters was 83, I thought.
Well, it was filmed in 83, but it came out in 84.
So
he was huge at that time. That was really at the cusp of his stardom.
That was with the whole Delirious. Actually, I think you're right. That was Delirious, or had just came out.
Delirious had come out.
Raw hadn't come out yet. Raw came out in 87.
Right,
Delirious was out.
But Trading Spaces had come already out. 48 Hours. Yeah, like some of the big ones of his career had already come out at that point.
Yeah.
But do you guys hear about what the...
Wait, it wasn't. I think it was something that wasn't a big enough role for him too at the time.
Well, it's also Murray was a little unhappy that he was getting overshadowed, and which is part of the reason why they just thought that, and they were right. The dynamic. Well, in that script it was because they were writing all these great lines for Eddie Murphy, and then when this was decided to go for more of an unknown, a lot of those lines went to Murray.
Right.
But are you familiar with the first draft?
Ghost Smashers? Yeah, I read it.
Right, it was taking place on
for
another
Belushi
planet.
And Aykroyd. It was supposed to be interdimensional ghost travelers, and I think one of the few things that stayed over from that, a lot of the basic outline for that original script stayed, but like in the first 20 pages, like the Marshmallow Man showed up, and it was one of 10 large-scale monsters. And the thing about it is, it's actually it's a really good script. It's really funny. It was written for just Venkman was written for Belushi to play.
Right.
And he just, obviously, he died. It was a big thing. So when I think Reitman or somebody read the script, it's like the budget does not exist to make this, and it's true, back in the 80s, the budget did not exist to make that movie.
But the truth is, they wound up probably making a superior film now. You might have liked that version of Ghostbusters.
I never said I liked it better. I'm just saying it was still a good film.
But in all likelihood, a lot of people probably wouldn't have liked it anywhere as much.
It was ahead of its time, I'll admit that.
But even if it was made now, if that film that Aykroyd wrote, it would probably be too all over the place. And what Reitman was able to bring to it, along with Ramis, who wound up, because it was Reitman's idea to bring Ramis on.
Well, I think Aykroyd, because Aykroyd wrote that first draft. And then,
minus no Egon, right?
No, there was only two. It was him and Belushi. That was it. There was no Egon. There was no Winston. Yeah. Egon was, I think he had shown the script to Harold, but I think he pretty much wrote that on his own. And it was a thick script too. It was long too.
Well, you get to see. There's a little bit of
jokes.
There's a little bit of Lucas and Aykroyd. Like some of these ideas are on one level brilliant and another level really out there. We have Invader Zim in a chat room likening it to Monkey King, which is that failed Indiana Jones script that never got made. That Lucas was behind.
What are we talking about? The first Ghostbusters?
No. When we were mentioning interdimensional ghost travelers, Invader Jim was asking if there was was there a Monkey King too, referencing all that.
The first draft of that. I'm sorry, I thought you said King of the Crystal Skull.
No. So
I read that script. It was actually
Monkey King's supposed to be insane, but it's amazing. Making something smaller made it not only more attainable, but it made it better.
The movie, in my opinion, is flawless. There's nothing wrong with that film. There's nothing I would change about it. There's nothing that I would do different about it.
Well, there's some editing mistakes.
But do you say that?
There's actually it's a famous clip where they actually go through and show you all, and there's actually tons of them in that particular movie.
Oh, it's the 80s. Yeah, there's flaws and stuff.
Yeah, but it doesn't take away from the film. The film is still fantastic.
That's what he said, because I remember when I saw it, when I went and see it in theaters on the big screen, I noticed things about that I had never even seen before.
When did you see it on the big screen?
I want to say 3 years ago, around Halloween.
So they did a 1 week re-release? Was it?
It was 1 day.
3D or anything?
No, it was just regular. Just we're showing Ghostbusters on the big screen, and I went with my friend Jason, and I had seen this movie 1,000 times. I would watch it. It's one of those movies I would watch it, and then I'd be like, I got nothing to do with it. I'll watch it again. That movie's that good. It's that well written. It's that good to me. It was one of those films that I watched as a kid. Because sometimes you're like, oh man, this movie was great when I was a kid. Let's see if it still holds up, and it just doesn't. It's not funny to you anymore. Like, this is a bad film. But Ghostbusters is an exception because
Godfather
I actually
2
believe
was
that
like
movie
that.
carried over, and it's a quality of writing, and the acting is good in it. The comedic.
Well, it's fantastic. I mean, it's just those particular actors and those creating those characters and just being so comfortable
good,
and in the zone that, that they're just having a great time and you just follow along with them. When I was a kid, we had, when you used to record things off HBO, my father actually had set it up so that we had Ghostbusters 1 and 2 on one VHS, where number 2 came in right where it comes, 5 years later, as soon as the credits, not even the full credits, the credits with the
goes
extra.
right to 5
It
years
goes
later.
right to 5 years
So it's
later.
like one big movie.
Yeah, so we watched a
That's
lot.
amazing.
It's a good thing I didn't have friends.
I stole my cousin's VHS copy of it, and I wore it out. The top fell off of it, and I had to get and thank God that by the time it wore out, DVDs.
No, you break things.
I do. That's why I don't have
Dave, you were
cable.
saying.
What were these eras that you were talking about? You said there's
There's they're not. There's nothing major. It's like you see, for an example, when Dan Aykroyd, not Venkman. Why can't I think of the character? Always. Stance.
Stance,
Right.
Ray Stance.
When Ray comes up with the ambulance for the first time before they turn it into Ecto
Got
1.
some shocks, and a
it's-
little wiring.
You see Bill Murray outside talking to him and stuff, and he's wearing a sweater vest, and he goes right inside to talk, and he, first scene with Janine
Yeah,
and
and
stuff
he's
like this. He
wearing
doesn't
a
have the
button-up.
sweater
He's
vest
wearing
on
a button-up,
anymore.
just a button-up.
Yeah, it's like little things like that. Like whoever the script supervisor was did not do their job.
But it also might
But it's,
have
little stuff
something-
like that.
Something to do with the fact that
dialogue is so good in that movie.
a lot of that
How much did it
dialogue,
cost? Only $3,800.
the dialogue tends to get changed up with the cast like that. So it
Yeah.
could have been simply like they're moving so fast, and it's like, so, okay, we suddenly have to reshoot this other scene. Hey, I hear the Nerdgasm theme in the background. Everybody, okay. So
That's just you, man.
Oh, really? Okay. So, there's a lot of character things. I think part of the reason why this is so successful is when you think of character moments. When you think of Ernie Hudson's character, Winston Zeddemore, and Ray Stantz talking about the end times.
That's one of the
on
best
way.
scenes in the movie. One of the best scenes in that movie, and it's a credit to Ernie Hudson's talent as an actor, because he pops up. I seriously, I'm a big Ernie Hudson fan. He does not get the credit that he deserves because he is. I'm one of those guys that gets mad if they don't have all 4 Ghostbusters on like a poster or something like that. Like, why wouldn't you have all 4 on there? Because each of them is intricate. And one of the best scenes in that movie is this great scene between Ray and Winston in the car. And it's a really great scene because they're obviously just coming from a job.
Right.
And they're driving around, and it's just this really good. It just feels like a real conversation. It feels like a real conversation between these two characters. At this point, you know them really well. It's so easy to fall in love with these characters, and they have this really great scene. And it's actually driven by Ernie Hudson.
Right.
Dan Aykroyd doesn't say a lot in it.
He's just definitely reactive in that.
He's
scene.
reactive, but it's one of the best scenes in the movie. And it kind of sets up this kind of how Ray loves hanging out with Winston a little bit more than everybody else, even though like him and Egon are kind of buddies. But it's one of the best scenes in the movie, and it ends on such a good note of just like maybe the reason we have been so busy is that the dead have been rising from the grave.
Yeah, and
How about a little music?
it gives you that feeling without.
No smoke too. It's got this grittiness to it. The film's got a grittiness to it as well. It's like a bunch of blue collar guys that happen to hunt ghosts.
Without scenes like that, you wind up with so much of a lesser film. And I think another filmmaker might, just cut out those scenes, not work in those scenes.
Go
make
for the
those scenes more
spectacle, yeah.
Yeah, or just make it more
The
slapstick.
spectacle is, I agree. Spectacle is there though,
Yeah.
and he did the smart thing in my opinion.
It was
He
such
said-
a great balance. That's why it goes beyond just being a comedy. It's
And
it's a
each
film that
character,
involves it.
each character had their own little moment, so it gave you a chance to fall in love with each character. Where with Ray, to me, it's this place is great. When can we move in? You gotta try this pole. I'm gonna get my stuff. When he just that whole scene with Egon, it's very easily the scene with the Twinkie, or when the very simple thing, I collect spores, molds, and fungus. You laugh at that. You're like, I like this character. And then when Winston, it's the first thing you meet him.
Yeah.
How about we are forgetting someone? We're leaving somebody out of this mix right here.
Rick Moranis,
Absolutely, that was written for
the
John.
unsung fifth
It was-
Ghostbuster.
yeah.
I don't think that he's ever been that great before or after. And Rick Moranis is a great comic actor, but I think that was him as a pinnacle. That is a classic actor, might be the funniest might be the funniest.
It's his most
character in the
iconic.
piece.
Probably definitely one of his most iconic.
Well, I think in that particular case, and I've seen a lot of Rick Moranis movies, and I was a huge fan of his from SCTV days.
Great.
That's the one.
I didn't care for
That's the
George
one movie that
Carlin
comes to my
movies.
mind that they really just gave him a straight out character.
And he ran
and he created it. He gave it a lot of intricacies and
he has
stuff
a-
like this, and it's a ridiculous character, especially when they make so much of the movie is very grounded in New York, except for the
grounded in
Ghostbusters.
reality. They make strives to be like this could they're trying to make it plausible.
Plausible,
for you.
yeah, but
When
he
has
makes
the
it.
party scene and he's just walking around telling why he bought other things. Like that's what
Yeah.
smoked salmon from Nova Scotia, like only $3.99.
Yeah, I bought it, yeah.
That was all him just riffing.
Yeah, well, he's very clever like that.
It's
It was written for John Candy originally.
right.
Yes,
and
as-
Candy was going to be a slime ball. He was going to be like filling up the girls at the party, and this character.
He was
has
going to
much
do
more
that, and then they
innocence.
said, well, you can't do that. And he said, what if I do him with a Russian accent? And I think what it came down to is they realized, like, John's not getting it. And there's nothing against John Candy's character. It's just like, I think every once in a while, especially when you work in a group of friends, as these guys did. Harold knew John and all these guys, they were on stripes together. They all worked
Oh, yeah.
together. I think you run into situations where, like, this guy would be perfect, and he just kind of hits a wall.
The problem is it's a small part, and then at that
It's a small
point,
part.
John Candy,
Huge star.
and John Candy has made amazing small parts sing throughout his career. I mean,
Home
just
Alone, perfect
Vacation,
example, yeah,
Home
too.
Alone,
Yeah.
Vacation, the list goes on and on. I think at that point it wasn't right, but it worked out okay.
It's nothing against his work. He still did good work after.
Yeah, I
and
would never
far
say
into the '80s, but like Rick Moranis came along and he just, like you said, he just
Yeah.
ran with it.
He hadn't hammered it out of the park. It's
God.
fantastic.
I
He
think
almost
the
steals
funniest-
scenes
Who
from some of the
brought the
others.
dog?
I think
He does.
he might be the funniest character in the piece. Even look at the
As far as
little
the straight
details.
comedic character, he's the only straight comedic character in that. Like,
But he plays into the story, so
he
it's
does.
yeah.
He plays-
But
he does
yeah.
your taxes.
Right, and the scene with Atherton when he's being monitored and he's abducted by Zool. I mean, you just see him; he's got no dialogue in the scene.
Oh, they have the
and
dog
he's-
is on the infrared
Yeah.
screen.
Right, he's just, you look at him in that
Yeah, it's
scene,
half
he's
so.
just like pointing as if he's taking the side of whoever's talking and he's
He's
like
two
pointing.
characters in that movie, really.
Yeah.
And he really did a good job of it.
Him
He
and
did-
Sigourney
he did.
Weaver.
He played Lewis, and then he played Zool. No, Vince Glortho, Keymaster of Gozer.
And other details, other details. I think
This movie's great.
elevate
I'm laughing at it right now. This is I'm sorry. This movie is great. I don't know how we can, like, Dave, I'm sorry. Like,
Dave, this
we
is
can
why you have
break
to
this movie
learn to
down all we
project
want. The thing
over
about it
Joe.
is, this movie is really good. And, it, like, I challenge anybody to say that they're wrong. That's a great title. But, like, every actor went in, they did a great job, they owned the part, and it just seemed like you watched the performances on the screen and they just had a good time doing it. And so rarely do you see that nowadays.
Okay, let's take a couple of minutes talking about what went wrong with Ghostbusters 2. Now, you guys might have a contrary opinion than do I, but from the beginning, I think the time I liked it the most was when I was a little kid and saw it for the first time. And my reaction was, hey, that wasn't bad. And then the more I saw it, the more...
You're a little kid in 90?
No, whenever I saw it, yeah. So the more I saw it, it just drained my heart.
I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people make it out. I don't think it's as good as the original.
I think it's a huge step down, and it's okay. It's an anomaly. Why? And that's a big reason why Murray won't come back. What is wrong with that film? Because all the pieces are there.
I'm going to say something real quick, and I'm as a Bill Murray fan, he's
You
transcended.
never say anything real quick. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
He's kind of transcended into this. It's not just that he's saying no to.
I think it's other reasons too. But to stay on the point of Ghostbusters 2, I think it is a step down. I mean, if you're going to rank,
definitely
it's
a
not
step
as good
down.
as the originals.
No, because the original-
I think it still has a lot of the things I liked. It's got a lot of charm from the original one.
Yeah.
Some of it's a little
It's dumbed
hokey.
down. It's hokey. That's the best word.
Like there's still great. I mean, we quote lines from it all the time.
Well, the courtroom scene was amazing. There's a handful of scenes in there that are, I think, really good. But
I don't think it holds
never
together.
had the resonance, with me. And let me tell you,
I think it also. Remember when I mentioned before that Ghostbusters 1 had a grittiness to it?
Yeah, it was more
There's
relatable.
no grittiness in Ghostbusters 2. There's no.
It plays to the
guys
younger
that
audience. Which is probably why you liked it when you were younger. Now it's
Yeah,
But I liked it for
It's the same thing that happened. It's the same thing that
viewing.
happened with Ninja Turtles 2. Ninja Turtles 1 was like a darker film, It was still for kids, but it was
Right.
darker. Like you compare that movie to the second one. The second one's very hokey. It's kind of the same thing with
Yeah.
Ghostbusters 1 and Ghostbusters 2. Ghostbusters 1, I mean, number one, they all smoked. Every one of them smoked. Every one of them smoked.
Costumes are dirty.
Costumes were a little dirty.
Right.
It was a little more blue collar. Like the film felt this grittier. You identified, and that's part of the reason you identified with them because it was a bunch of, like I said,
It felt more
blue-collar
shot
guys.
in New York than shot in a soundstage.
Exactly. It felt real. It felt
Yeah.
very, very real. And then when you get to Ghostbusters 2, it's kind of like here comes the Hollywood money. Like it was such a huge hit, an unexpected huge hit, that when the sequel came out, naturally there would have been a sequel.
Right.
And it just, and I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people say it is. I think it's extremely quotable. I just think it
Yeah.
lacks that kind of that grittiness that we love so much about the first one.
I'm going to point out something that I've said for a very long time and I've heard no one else mention. It shows you how important Elmer Bernstein's touch was to the original Ghostbusters. The music he created, the theme, he created a very ethereal ghost movie music that had a terrific comic undertone to it. They had a different composer in Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah.
Randy Elman, it was like his first film, and it does not convey the same tone. It does not feel like the same movie, and I think it severely hurts it. It sounds like that score was done on a keyboard. It wasn't orchestral like Elmer Bernstein, one of the greats.
No, I think that's a really fair point.
And they
It
would
is
have
a
been
fair
better
point.
going the Star Trek, the Superman 2 route, which was to recycle John Williams' score from the first film and just re-edit it and put it back into that film. I would like to see Ghostbusters 2 with a re-edited score, just using all of the original cues written for the first movie. It would feel a lot closer to the original as well, because you're killing the tone. You change the tempo. It's not becoming for the piece itself. Now, that's not its only problem, but it does further remove it. I think that the Men in Black series has a much greater continuity from one to the other than does Ghostbusters.
Really,
from
because
one to
I
two.
actually believe, and I wanted to make this point of the fact that the opening, the way that they set up that second movie, I have not seen something like that done. We talked about the last one being a little bit based in reality, like they tried to sell that this could actually happen.
Yeah, the
Scientific-
setup, the script-wise and the setup in Ghostbusters
script-wise,
2 is
it
actually
made
really.
so much sense.
It really did.
Because, and I was thinking about this on the drive over here. You watch, we were big. You and I were all big fan of comic movies and these
Right.
Avengers. Big. Who pays for that? And they finally and they addressed it back in the back then.
Yeah, that
And
was.
they were like, when Winston has the whole thing, he's like, yeah, we saved the world from a 100-foot marshmallow man, ended up getting sued by every state, county, city in New York.
Yeah.
And they kind of set up, and it makes sense when you really get it down. It's like, okay, they were the only guy, there's no one, the marshmallow man's Walt Gozer is gone, like, we have to blame them for this, and it makes sense.
I would say that the Ghostbusters 2 does begin stronger than it ends, and I think there was just, it's like the magic was sucked from it, and it's not for lack of trying from everybody involved in the
I
film.
just don't think it's as depressing as you're making it out to be.
But I think a lot of people
I don't think he's
just.
saying it's depressing.
I think a lot of people are just almost heartbroken by the film. Not on a Phantom Menace level.
I think
We're
you
not
can
that
still
far
watch
from
that movie and enjoy it.
But
I'm
the
gonna go
thing
on a
is,
limb. I think
look,
you can watch it and enjoy it.
Ghostbusters. The problem is that it's one of the top 10 movies I've ever seen, and when you have a sequel that's just middling, with its good moments,
You have to enjoy
wind up.
things sometimes. If you look at a movie for what, like I'm not saying it's not accepting a thing because it's like, for me to say that Ghostbusters 2 is one of the worst sequels I've ever seen in my life is not true. I'm sorry. It's just
No, and I don't
It's
think
not the
Dave's saying that at
Exorcist.
all, but
It's not-
it
No, no,
is.
I'm giving the
Yeah.
extreme. I'm
Right.
giving the extreme. I just think like, and I don't want you to think I'm telling you you're wrong. I'm just saying like, that movie like could never be the original. In my view, the movie probably shouldn't have gotten a sequel to begin with. We all wanted it because we love those characters.
I think
Yeah,
it
we
done.
didn't get
I
it.
think I really I do think that a sequel could have happened, but just the pieces didn't collect. And as we get into Men in Black, I do think
They
that's a
also
much more
rushed the script a
successful.
little bit. The studio
Probably.
is much more. We want this from it as well.
Yeah, but that's always what happens in
Yeah,
these situations.
especially when you make money, because there was
Yeah.
there was technically the first Ghostbusters was not a big. It was a big, but not like by studio standards.
Certainly not by today's
No,
standards.
not by today's standards, and I think it was a surprise hit because I don't think the studio had a lot of faith in it.
No.
They did have a good marketing plan though.
Well, the premise, if you read it to someone in
Bunch of
1983, they'd be
guys
like,
that hunt
"Huh?"
goes,
Yeah,
giant
it's-
marshmallow guy comes down.
Yeah.
It's
It's
you
a-
know
It was a ludicrous thing.
We're gonna
Thank
have-
God it worked out.
We're going to head out to a commercial. When we come back, we're going to have our Nerd News Girl, and we're also going to have a very special call-in guest, Paul Guay. But before we go, I want to read a couple of comments in the chat room. One is that the Phantom Menace gave people cancer. Thank you, Wolfboy, NYC. Oh my, where are you going? We're not off the air yet.
This is what happens anytime someone
Anytime
mentions the
Wolf
Phantom
talks,
Menace.
I leave.
So coming back after the commercial break, our Nerd News Carl, and then our special guest, Paul Guay.
InRavio.com.
Hey, this is Gina Cotillo from The Gina Show. Come join us every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for celebrity interviews, Reality Reel with Billy Charles, funny stories with Brian Kinnear, and much, much more. The Gina Show can be found only on InRavio.com, broadcasting to the world, so come and catch us.
The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment For over 60 years, Hanson Carpet has put the customer first, providing only the finest quality products and service. And Hanson Carpet is so much more than just carpet. We also carry a wide selection of window blinds and shades, and our licensed and insured technicians can service any of your flooring or window covering needs. Browse our huge selection of laminate, carpet, linoleum, vinyl, and tile. Stop by our showroom today or visit HansonCarpet.com. No matter what your project, Hanson Carpet has got you covered. InRavio.com.
From the glass-lined tanks of Old Latrobe, we tender this premium show for your good taste. Welcome back to Nerdgasm.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm getting this feeling that Peppercorn Montgomery wants to tell us something.
I've just been served. Oh!
With what, Tim?
Funny you should ask, because if you're looking for something to do,
I am!
You should check out the contest tab and enter to win tickets to one of the many shows at the Paramount in Huntington.
No way.
Also,
what else?
Also, go to ParamountNewYork.com for a complete list of upcoming shows and to buy tickets.
No.
Yes.
Heck at it. That sounds great. So everybody that's watching right now, you do that. Okay, now we have our special caller. The Nerd Girl is going to have to wait. So we've got our special caller. Let's get as much time with this guy as possible. Now, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of this program, I will be reading to you our guests' top 5 favorite fantasy comedies. So you have to wait until the end of the show to hear our guest's top 5 comedy fantasies and why.
They're all
with this,
Death Becomes Her.
with us right now is the creator, screenwriter of Liar Liar, and somebody perhaps known for his best work in Cesar Arnauto's Deadly Xmas. That's right. Paul Guay is with us today.
Hi, guys.
Hey,
Welcome.
Paul. So,
Hi, Paul.
Hello. I can't see you guys, so I don't know if that's Peppercorn or Joe.
we are all mooning you right now, so it's the best thing that you
Excellent.
can't see us right now.
It's your best feature. That was one of the most intimidating half hours I've ever heard. You guys actually know what you're talking about.
Well, that's the idea, my friend.
We're actually reading it all off the internet.
I love it.
So now, you are obviously a writer, you're an actor, you're a founding member of the comedy troupe Moose. You've written, obviously, you're best known for writing the initial drafts of Liar Liar. So, I'm really curious how you came up with that concept. How did that come to you?
I walk around with a stupid pad in my pocket all the time, and I actually have a pen to go with it. And whenever I get an idea, I jot it down. So that was one of many ideas I'd written down. And my partner and I would go over our ideas from time to time. And that one seemed kind of interesting to us. And so we pitched it to 9 different companies back in 1990, and every one of them turned it down.
Now, did one of the companies that initially turned it down ultimately support the film, ultimately get behind the film?
No, we figured that there was no interest in the concept, so we retired it for 4 years. And then we were at Imagine, which is Brian Grazer and Ron Howard's company.
Yep.
We were in there for a general meeting, and the executive, David Friendly, told us that Brian Grazer had an idea for a film about a liar. So we kind of jumped in and said, let us tell you our idea. So we pitched the idea to David Friendly, and he said, that's really interesting. Brian's not in the office now, but when he gets back, I'll pitch it to him. We figured, that's really going to happen. So we go out to get our parking validated at Imagine, and we see this force of nature go by at 200 miles an hour with a bad haircut, and it's Brian Grazer. And through the glass doors, we see him talking to David Friendly. And Brian opens the door and says, do you guys have a minute? And we figure, what the hell? It's the president of Imagine. We already got our parking validated. Sure. So we go into Brian's office, and Brian sits down, and he says, tell me about your movie. And we said, well, it's about a liar. And he pounds the desk twice, says, I love it, I love it. Then he says, what does your liar do? And we said, well, we're thinking that he's a lawyer. He pounds the desk twice, says, I love it, we're going to make this movie.
Okay, and it didn't matter at that point what you had written on the page. You could have written all work and all no plays makes Johnny a dull boy, and he would have been cool, the concept is great. Because he hadn't read anything at that point.
Right, and there was nothing written but a pitch. So then we had to come back after, we go back to my place in Santa Monica, and by the time we get home, my agent is on the phone saying that they're talking to Universal about a deal. And this never happens. Nothing ever happens this fast in Hollywood. So the next step was to come up with a half-hour outline, which we then had to pitch to Brian. And Brian has many, many good qualities, none of which includes an attention span. So he was stretched out on his couch going comatose while my partner and I are pacing back and forth, pitching the full outline to him. And I think finally, just to save his soul, he sent us out and said, go write the first draft. So that's how it started.
So what is it like, collaborating with somebody in your experience? You probably collaborated more than one other writer at the same time, but what is it like? What are the pros and cons of when you're dealing with somebody else in the writing process?
That's a really good question. One pro is that it cuts your tax burden in half because it cuts your income in half, so that's great. It's really helpful to kick ideas back and forth with somebody else because I tend to come up with a lot of variations of an idea, and it's very helpful to have a partner say, this works, that sucks, put those two together. And it's good when you're writing comedy to have feedback immediately in the room, to have an idea.
It is good to have that.
Did you have any idea, like, is there a concept that you stood behind, or your writer partner had that concept that you stood behind in creating Liar Liar, and that the other one fought back on really hard, and did that concept wind up in the film, or in the final screenplay?
There were a lot of battles that we had. I can't remember specifically who won which battle, but it was a contentious writing process. And then we went through a series of drafts. Imagine was a powerful enough entity that we didn't have to get notes from Imagine and from Universal. We just kind of got them funneled through Imagine. So we only got one set of notes, which is very rare and great, because that meant that they couldn't contradict each other as much as notes usually do. Yeah.
And how helpful now be honest, what percent of the time were the notes that you read logical to you versus what the hell are they thinking? Really? They want me to add a zombie?
They didn't suck, which is really unusual for studio notes. And if you want, we can talk about that in a minute. But in general, you get self-contradictory notes, and you have to figure out who's the powerful person in the room that you have to propitiate in order to get the screenplay through the process.
Yeah.
But Imagine's notes were along the lines of, we get that you guys can do the broad comedy. Let's make it tighter, more narrow, and let's work on the heart. And then they wound up, after 3 drafts, casting Jim Carrey, so that made sense.
Now,
At that point in time, yes.
Now, how much different, basically, what percent of your script did he throw out when he got involved?
It's a little bit hard to answer. My partner and I wrote 5 drafts of the screenplay, and then when Carrey came on board, we were told that he uses a screenplay kind of as a diving board, a trampoline. And the first take, he'll say your lines, and the second take, he'll say some version of your lines. And by take 22, if there's a noun and a verb that you recognize, you're doing pretty well.
I believe it.
Yeah. So we were there one day watching the shooting. He was doing one of the courtroom scenes, and he has inexhaustible energy, as you and I would if we're being paid $20 million.
Yeah.
And he was very funny, and he was riffing, and he would start out pretty close to the script, and by the end, you're sort of in a different world, and then it becomes a question of what's going to be edited into the final film.
Yeah.
The story was exactly the story we had written. The scenes were the scenes that we had written. It was all our characters, but a number of the jokes were not ours, especially in the first act. The second act and third act were a lot closer to the script.
Oh, okay.
So now, I noticed in your filmography, because I did my research, that you've also done polishes on scripts like Neverending Story, and Mouse Hunt. Now, what is the process of being, because you probably weren't credited, you were probably just part of the idea machine. What is the process like when you do a polish for a film like that?
Well, for Mouse Hunt, there was, I think, a flashing green light, but they figured that the script wasn't quite ready to go. So they hired my partner and me for 3 weeks to do a polish, and we kind of made it more believable, kind of narrowed down some of the extravagances that were going on, came up with a bunch of material of our own. Mm-hmm. And I think when we saw the finished film, I think we had 3 jokes left in that film. Yeah.
Well, now, you've done these huge films, but you also do, theater, like regional theater in Los Angeles, and you do films like Cesar Donato's Deadly Xmas, which you were brilliant in, and the upcoming Cesar Donato's Paranormal Halloween, which you'll be brilliant in, even though we haven't filmed a frame of that yet. Now,
I only work with the best.
What is
Clearly.
What is, okay.
You're making Dave blush.
If only I could see that.
And with this backdrop, he'll just disappear.
Yes.
So now, what draws you to smaller films too? Because obviously, it's night and day between a big Universal film and just a Wild Eye releasing film. What draws you to the little productions like that?
I'm honored to be asked to act. I know almost nothing about film acting, so I figure I'm basically learning on your dime, which is great. Sometimes it works out in the low-budget films, and I'm happy with what happens. Sometimes not. Sometimes I feel like I've embarrassed myself because I wasn't in control enough of what I was doing. I was really happy with Cesar Donato because I thought I didn't come off as incredibly retarded, which is good. Yeah.
You play, for those of you who hadn't seen the film, he plays my snobby screenwriting professor.
Where did I come up with that performance?
And you even made a correction in my script. I referenced the black cat from being from 1 year later than it was. I said, this reminds me of that scene in The Black Cat from 1934, and you had read the whole script, and you said, Dave, it was 1933.
I put the nerd.
Gotta know your stuff, Dave.
So I have a couple of my co-hosts right here. Know your work, respect you very much, and I have a couple of questions for you.
Great.
Tim?
Well, first I wanted to just talk about, because I know we, of course, talking about Liar Liar, and you also, as you said, worked on Mouse Hunt and stuff like that. Is it, as a writer who probably takes a lot of care in his craft, is it sort of scary when you know that a script you worked on is being handed off to actors, two actors I like a hell of a lot, but are very well known for their improvisational style, namely Jim Carrey and Nathan Lane? Is it sort of scary that by the end of this, you said that most of the script for Liar Liar is intact and stuff. Is it sort of scary? Is it, you don't want to let your baby go to someone that's gonna, or is it exciting to see where this, or is it exciting to see where someone like a Jim Carrey might take some of the jokes and ideas and run with it?
That's how a mature person would see it. However,
but I know we're artists.
yeah, you care about what you write, so it matters to you that the things that you've spent months of your life working on kind of make their way to the screen. And an actor, even a brilliant improviser, he's going to see the trees rather than the forest. So he's going to go for what's funny in the moment. And he may not realize that he's going to be knocking down something that you needed set up there to pay off later. Or in a comedy fantasy like Liar Liar, he may inadvertently subvert one of the rules of the film. And, you can't really walk up to him and stop the shoot and say, Jim, would you actually like to read the lines in the script just for one second?
I couldn't imagine that conversation. Would
Yeah. So in general, as a screenwriter, there are huge pluses because for me, movies are the greatest art form that's ever been invented. That's the plus side. And the things that have affected me in life have been movies even more than books, which I love almost equally. The minus is you have literally no control over your work. Between the studio, the many producers, the director, the stars, the editor, you're lucky if what you write survives.
Yeah, that's true.
I understand that, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the actual reasons, what do you call it, as an actor, I sort of lean towards doing theater as a preference. I would take work anywhere, but the idea of you going on stage, what you do is what's actually shown to the audience after it's tweaked by the director. And it's a little scary. I know I've done some independent films where it's like they took the worst take that I did that whole day, and I'm just like, why would they ever do that?
Right.
A lot easier to grab that take first. To really look at your
Oh, no, I
performance.
understand the logic behind it, but it's still just like, ugh, I don't care
That's
about their
really
movie, I
interesting.
care about me.
Yeah, in film, your performance is entirely in the hands of the director and editor. And
Yeah.
you can be trying a number of different things to give sort of a palette, a range of choices to those people. And if they choose the one that, in your opinion, is wrong, you can look like a total idiot.
Yeah, which has happened to actors through the years.
Yes.
Yeah. Paul, I have a question for you. Paul. I understand that you did, at least for a very short period of time, you worked for World Wrestling Entertainment as a consultant. What were you?
Where did you get that information?
I have no idea. A little birdie told me on Facebook today.
So I worked for WWE for 1 month between September and October of 2002.
Yes, and I was just wondering, what was it like? Why did you leave? And what did you exactly do?
I grew up as a huge wrestling fan. I grew up in the San Francisco territory back when
Oh,
there was-
God bless the territory era.
Yes, yeah. And I was a huge fan, and I had a very strong idea of what wrestling should be. It should be faux sport. It should not be ironic. It should not poke fun at itself. It should take itself seriously enough, that you can invest emotionally in what's going on. So I had been pitching a film idea to WWE Studios, and I had Kurt Angle attached to the project.
Okay.
Kurt Angle, for any of your listeners who don't know, was a gold medalist in the Olympics in real wrestling and was an outstanding professional as a professional wrestler.
Yeah, his resume is impeccable. He won the gold medal. He won 2 gold medals. I think he actually won it with a broken and fractured neck.
Yeah, he had a fractured vertebrae in his neck. And
he-
you and I could do that, but for Kurt, that was an achievement.
Yes.
So I had Kurt attached, and I did this 20-minute pitch for the head of WWE Films, and at the end of the pitch, he said, "That's really good. Of course, we would never make a wrestling movie." And I thought, how silly of me to think that WWE Films would make a wrestling film. So he said, "But our ratings are down on the TV show. Let me put you in touch with Stephanie McMahon, who was the head of the creative department at that point, and see if she'd be interested in talking to you." So I talked to Stephanie on the phone. They flew me out to Connecticut. I met with Stephanie. She liked the meeting and said, I want you to stay overnight. I want you to talk to Vince and the writing staffs of Raw and SmackDown tomorrow. So the next day I went in, and there's a table, conference room table, where I'm seeing people I've grown up on, like Michael P.S. Hayes is there, Triple H is at the table, and Paul Heyman is at the table, and Brian...
You get the Freebirds, Triple H, and Paulie dangerously there. That's amazing.
Yeah, Brian Gewirtz is at the table. He's the head writer for Raw, and Vince is at the head of the table. So he sits down, takes out his yellow pad, and says, go. So I pitched him what my vision of wrestling would be. And
this is for the movie? For your movie with Kurt Angle?
No, this is to be hired to write on the...
Hired to write, okay.
Yeah. By the way, since I can't see you guys, I don't know if you're passed out from boredom or anything, so at any time...
No, you're doing a great job, Paul.
Okay. We're all leaning forward in the seat. If you don't
I'm really interested to hear this, so...
Okay. So I pitched my take of what wrestling should be like, and at one point I was, to lighten the mood... Michael P.S. Hayes is sitting next to me, and he says... Freebirds. How many bumps have you taken? A bump is a fall in the ring. And, my answer is 0. How many hit movies have you written?
Perfect reply.
Cheers.
Yeah. So at one point I said, I was pitching an idea, and I said, if Triple H doesn't like it, I'm happy to take him outside and pound him. And Vince thought that was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. Triple H is his son-in-law, so he said, oh yeah, Triple H is a pussy. You could do it. I pitch my version of wrestling, and at the end of it, nobody says anything. And at the end of it, Vince looks around the table of 15 or so professionals who've been doing this for 20 years each and says, so does anybody have anything to say? And nobody commented at all. They were all waiting to see what Vince said.
God bless.
Yeah. So because what you want around you is highly paid yes men. That's the smart way to go.
Yeah.
So I leave the meeting, and Stephanie tells me it went really well, and they hire me. And for a month, I'm basically a writing consultant with the theory that if it works out, it was a 6-month contract. If it works out theoretically, I'm going to wind up as the head writer on SmackDown. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. Paul Heyman is the head writer on SmackDown. He knows more about wrestling than I will ever know.
Yeah.
Please tell me you've made a mistake and you would want me for the head writer of the other show, which doesn't have the good wrestling on it.
Yeah.
So that to me was sort of indicative of they didn't know what their strengths were and they didn't know what their weaknesses were.
Yeah, and I agree with that, especially in the era that you worked in there. I don't think they knew exactly what they were doing at the time. A big question right now, since you just told me this story, is if you wouldn't mind, what was your vision of wrestling at the time? What did you kind of picture? What was your grand scheme? What did you pitch to them?
The belts should mean something. Wins and losses should mean something. We shouldn't have 6 champions. We should have 1 champion. Whether you beat the guy for the title or not should matter. There was an era back in the WWF, like the Bruno Sammartino era, where people emotionally invested in this guy. He meant something to them. He was the immigrant story. He was the Rocky story in real life. And if you were a kid or a young adult, if you were a steel worker in Pittsburgh or something...
You identified with him.
Yeah, you identified.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, it wasn't a cartoon. You weren't standing back and looking kind of from a superior, ironic perspective at this. You were going, I'm going to suspend my disbelief while I'm at Madison Square Garden, or in my case, at the Cow Palace. And just like, in a movie, the actors don't turn to the screen every 2 minutes and say, oh, by the way, we're faking this. Wrestling shouldn't do it either.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with that. As a fan myself, I think you're making a really good point right now.
Paul, we're actually going to be very short in time right now. I would really like to have you back on a future episode.
Paul, call me. I want to talk more about this. This is. I think you have a great experience, and I
just come back to an all wrestling episode.
It's another reason why I would love to have you back in another month or so on another episode. Let's do it again, my friend.
That sounds great. Thanks a lot, guys.
Paul, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Paul.
Treat.
So we're going to head out to a commercial break right now. When we come back, we're going to have our Nerd News Girl, and we're also going to take on the Men in Black series. So hope to see you in just a minute.
Bye, folks.
Bye-bye.
Am I waving to it? Nah, I'm never waving.
He's been our best.
Radio.com. For over 60 years, Hanson Carpet has put the customer first, providing only the finest quality products and service. And Hanson Carpet is so much more than just carpet. We also carry a wide selection of window blinds and shades, and our licensed and insured technicians can service any of your flooring or window covering needs. Browse our huge selection of laminate, carpet, linoleum, vinyl, and tile. Stop by our showroom today or visit hansoncarpet.com. No matter what your project, Hanson Carpet has got you covered. The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, InRavio can get your message out there, and we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is InRavio.com. InRavio.com.
Welcome back to NERDGASM, and I am sorry, chat room, I think you wrote a couple of things you wanted me to ask of our guest.
I should have wrote a
I missed
really
it, so
we don't care about the chat room
you
tonight.
will have to come back for the episode that Paul Guay returns on and then ask the questions again. I'm sorry. So we're now
there's a
going to
really
delve
good Deadpool
into...
diatribe going on in the chat room right now.
Okay, no, we got to stay focused. We only got 30 minutes left in the show.
Stay focused.
Like right now, we're going to delve into our Men in Black, and to kick things off, I want to go to our nerd news girl, Erin.
Go, Erin.
So please, let's throw on the nerd news girl video
Now.
and take it away.
Are we getting a fax?
Take it away. Yes.
Hey, I'm Erin, and
Hi,
here are some
Erin.
fun facts about tonight's movies.
Did you make this surfboard?
I did not make this board. I painted on this board. I just started painting mermaids when I was like 17. They started all selling, and I was like, for a long time, I was kind of struggling with, you know, what kind of art I wanted to make, and I was always passionate about the ocean, and I loved surfing, and so mermaids kind of, you know, fell into that. The role of Peter Venkman was originally written for John Belushi.
You're a big fan of Ghostbusters?
The first one, or with the marshmallow guy.
The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man?
Yeah. I always had nightmares, but they were like kind of like cuddly nightmares. The scene involving a woman's mink coat coming to life was originally written and storyboarded to be in the original Ghostbusters. I think that painting is kind of a letting out your inner child, so Actor Vincent D'Onofrio researched his role as Edgar by watching a lot of bug documentaries. In order to achieve his character's distinctive walk, he put on knee braces so he couldn't bend his legs and taped up his ankles. The original pug for Men in Black was used to play Frank again, but since the pug was now 7 years old, they used makeup to hide the gray fur around his nose. In Men in Black 3, NERDGASM co-host Joe Winchell appears in the movies as an alien.
Damn you, Monsanto!
And that was this week's NERDGASM.
That's this week's NERDGASM.
That was this week's NERDGASM news. Thanks for watching. Every time I paint something, it'll somehow come into my life in actuality.
You haven't had actually little mermaids come into your life, though.
I would love to meet a mermaid.
You're looking at one right here.
Yeah.
So now, Joe, do you know why I use that picture of you? Why I would use such an out-of-date picture of you?
Because I'm sexy.
How was it
Not
out
what
of
I
date?
was thinking.
He looks exactly the same, and he's
Because
always smoking.
Because you had the Ghostbusters shirt on, man. I went looking through all of your pictures. I'm like, that one. You're wearing a Ghostbusters shirt.
I have several pictures where I'm wearing a Ghostbusters
Well,
shirt.
that's the one I saw.
Okay.
It's the only decent one.
Men in Black.
He's probably right, actually. I'm not even going to contest that statement.
I gotta say that, Men in Black, I rewatched these 3 films over the last few days, and I
Yes,
think
I
that
did, Tommy Parker.
That's Timmy Parker.
Timmy?
And the screen's not that far away for you.
Timmy,
for
I
Timmy to be
definitely
looking
did.
like Tommy.
I have bad eyesight.
So this is, you know what? Looking back at the films, they were every bit as strong as I remembered. And it's amazing it's somewhat comparable. It's fairly close to Ghostbusters in terms of how clever it is, because I was really impressed on a number of different levels. And whereas the direction is not quite as smooth as Ivan Reitman's in the original Ghostbusters, it's very distinct, it's very interesting, it's bold. The dialogue is exceptionally crisp and impressive, and like the little fine details of the script really blew me away. When they were talking about how do they have the money to fund Men in Black, it's because they stole technology from certain alien life forms, like whether it's Velcro or microwave. It shows that there was a lot of attention to detail paid to the script, and a lot of genre films don't tend to have that attention to detail put to the script. Couple that with Tommy Lee Jones possibly at his best in terms of just commitment to character, and he's always great.
U.S. Marshals.
And there's such a terrific dichotomy of characters between the two of them. Now, I say at his best. He's always, if you listen to what I said he's always great. But, I said he's possibly at his best. And it's got an energy, it's got a vibrance to it, and, I love it. I'm not a big fan of Vincent D'Onofrio in general, the actor that he's become, but I think in this particular case, this was the best I had seen him since Full Metal Jacket,
Vincent D'Onofrio?
Yeah, I think he made a really interesting series of choices in this film. To play, it's
He's weird
distinct.
like that.
He's, it's very distinct. I guess he's sort of hit or miss, and sometimes he's just going for the uniqueness. And I think it was always a character that took a little getting used to, but I think he's pretty great. And I love the energy, the crackle. Now, I don't know really anything about the comic book. Do you guys have experience with the comic book?
Yeah. I own all the comic books. It's completely different. It's it's dark.
How much?
Yeah, it's much. Yeah.
So it's not a comedy then?
No.
No.
Well, what do you feel?
Not
What do you
so
feel?
much.
Okay, how do you feel?
It does. It has. Moments.
It's dark comedy, though.
Yeah, it's very, very dark.
They don't
comedy, but
neuralize
it's-
people, they kill them.
Yeah.
Oh,
And they
really?
cover it up. It's funny because it was put up by Malibu Comics, I think, and I've read it. I used to have a couple paperbacks of it that were given to me. I think I got them at a garage sale. But it was a good comic book. It was good, and it was done as a miniseries, and it achieved this kind of cult success. And I think I don't know how it wound up on the desk of Universal. Who made this movie?
Barry Levinson.
Barry Sonnenfeld?
Well, let's just say Universal. That sounds
It
like
was
a good answer.
Universal. So I can't remember.
Well, you
who.
worked for them.
Me?
Remember you're in the third movie?
Oh yeah,
It was on the Nerd Girl News.
it was.
So, but
Hey, yo,
here's a little inside track. I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Here's a little
Interrupt me
inside
in
story. Well, you do it enough to me. It's payback time. So
It's getting snippy, kids.
I'm making Dave mad.
Put up the cage.
Go.
I had heard that the writer, Little Bird, told me, and this is not anything I read on the internet. This is just a story I heard firsthand from
Quite
a
literally was a
contact.
Little Bird.
Stop.
Was it on Twitter? 'Cause that's
Ed
not
Solomon,
Little
Bird, but not Joe.
Yeah, no, exactly. Ed Solomon was not happy with what became of the script, so he got to write it. He got the credit for it.
Ed Solomon wrote the script.
Right, and he said apparently, I'll take the money, thank you very much. But I have to wonder if what he was unhappy about was that the tone was changed, because he might have written something that was closer in loyalty to what the comic book was.
Very possible.
Do you guys? What do you think of the tone of the movie? Do you think it works better?
I
in
liked the first movie.
The comic. Do you think that it works better as a comic kind of story or a more serious, darker story?
I mean, I love the first movie. I think it just nails it. It's a great movie. It's a lot of fun.
Fun to watch.
Yeah,
it's funny as hell.
Yeah, Will Smith is.
It's probably one of his best performances. Yeah.
Yeah, Tommy Lee Jones is right in the Tommy Lee Jones line, and all the supporting cast and the whole world that they build. This sort of underground.
It was a great big movie to come out. It
was
had
fantastic.
A great ending. It was fantastic.
It's one of those weird instances where it's so different than the comic that it's really hard to compare them.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the character names are the same in the basic.
I think
concept.
actually most of the characters they used are the same.
But they're so different.
Yeah.
And the tone is so different, and the storyline is so different that it's very difficult to compare them.
I have to, I think
they're both successful in their own right. I think the movie is just. I think the movie's a little better than if I had to weigh one against, because I just think the movie just works.
I don't think the comic book would work so much as a movie. It could work as like
a series,
a miniseries.
The chat room just pointed out the Men in Black animated series, and have you guys seen it?
Yeah,
I've seen every episode of it.
Is it like the comic book?
No,
no,
it's like the movie.
It's more like the movie.
It's like the movie. It's fun to watch. But again, it would work if they were going to adapt the comic book, it's a good comic book. It's compelling. Right. It's got a lot of questions of character, and I remember from the comic book, and this has been a while back since I read it. I don't know where my copies went, but I was trying to kind of remember, and they kind of question what they do a little bit more. They kind of do in the movies, but it's a lot about that. It's like, is this right? Are we right to cover this up? And they do it in such a violent way. They kill people and have it covered up. If they've seen it, and it's a very shadow government thing. So,
So
but the character names, I don't think it would work as a
context.
film. I think it would work as like a HBO miniseries, like AMC. This would probably right up AMC's alley.
It's basically more of like an extreme version of the X-Files.
Yeah, it's a very extreme X-Files.
Where if Mulder and Scully were in on it, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Whose idea was to turn it so so comical?
What do you mean turn it into a comical?
No,
probably Barry Sonnenfeld.
Well,
if you met this guy, he wears cowboy hats to set.
All the time.
No, I'm not kidding.
All the
Rhinestone.
Time. Oh, that's right. You're on the side.
Yeah,
and if we have enough time, I want to hear all about Joe's experiences being involved with Men in Black 3. Now, a few things, a few details that I'm so impressed.
Go ahead.
So impressed at all that thought this is probably one of Danny Elfman's best ever themes. I think that the music that he wrote for it is like his take on Peter Gunn. It's Danny Elfman.
I'm sorry. No, he did not.
That theme is
Danny
amazing.
Elfman? This is his best work?
No, I said amongst his best work.
It's amongst. I'm sorry. Never mind. You're right.
No, because
it's like it was his best work, and I was going to be like,
an iconic theme, and
it is very good.
When you look at the production design of the movie, it's so unique. They managed not to be derivative of Star Wars or any of the big sci-fi films. It feels like its own entity. It's distinct. It's technically
it fits right into the movie they're doing.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about real quick, and I think we can kind of mash this up into all three of them because he did an impeccable job. There's Rick Baker's work and all the creature stuff.
Yeah. The alien design was fantastic.
The alien design in every movie, even if you like the second one or not, the way that those creatures looked were spot on. You could tell the dedication was in it, and it was just really, really good.
One of the best effects I've seen in any movie is in this film.
In the first one?
Yeah.
Okay.
When the man's face opens up and reveals the tiny alien on the inside.
Oh, it's a great scene.
That's one of the best effects I've ever seen in any movie.
It still holds up to this day, actually.
Yeah. I still don't know what's CGI, what's puppeteering. It's brilliant. And for film from 97.
Good story, good villain. It was good, all-around great film. Vincent D'Onofrio, you mentioned Vincent D'Onofrio in the Nerd Girl news earlier. He's one of those guys that's like, I don't want to say he's a crazy actor because I like Vincent D'Onofrio, but the way he goes about his process.
Yeah, he's hardcore method.
Very much.
He's very similar. Not in success, but in approach to Daniel Day-Lewis. Daniel Day-Lewis reads 37 books on Abraham Lincoln and makes people call him Lincoln. Stuff
a day.
I'm sure he's a fast reader, but that's a lot.
I swear, sometimes I look at D'Onofrio and I feel like he's just trying to be weird and different, and I don't know what his process is.
Every actor's process is different. Doesn't mean it works all the time.
Yeah.
It worked for Men in Black 3. You said in the Nerd Girl news that he watched a bunch of Men in Black 1.
Yeah.
He watched a bunch of bug documentary, and you could tell. I mean, I give my hats off to Vincent D'Onofrio because his work to moving around, because the whole point of it is it's a big guy in like a little skin suit, and he's always going to have trouble moving, and he honestly he nailed it. It's a really great performance from Vincent D'Onofrio.
It's odd that, for me, it's odd for me to say that. I think it's like his best. It's like his best role. Just like Ghostbusters, Let's move on to Men in Black 2 without introducing it. I do not like it. Well, I just want to finish saying that one of the parallels between Ghostbusters and Men in Black is that there are really good human moments in Men in Black. And just like there was really good human moments in Ghostbusters, which in my opinion is the stronger film, it really carries it to the next level. So Men in Black 2.
Men in Black. Men in Black, Dave.
First off,
Men in Black.
First of all, I like this film.
Did you say Ghostbusters again?
I like this film better than Ghostbusters 2. I think it's got more continuity. It's got more continuity from this prior film to this one. Okay. I feel like it's not it's more hit and miss. It's not as well written. The comedy is definitely more hit and miss, but it does.
Well, they had to rewrite the entire second and third act of the movie. Right, because the movie came out shortly after the Twin Towers, and they
there was a big scene for the Twin Towers.
We're on 2. Anyway, I suppose that was supposed to be subtle. Anyway, the whole premise, the whole thing was very closely tied into the Twin Towers, and it being.
You ever read that draft of the script?
No,
I went and read it. It was very different. They changed a whole ending.
And they changed it on the fly.
Which makes sense because I kind of like that first. I kind of like the first half of the movie a little bit. Like it's not bad. But
Patrick Warburton, there's a lot of there's a lot of great things.
No, don't get me wrong. It's not like the cast is good, obviously, and there's one joke in it that makes me laugh where they get flushed out, and Jay's like, "Yeah, man, back when you was an agent, you used to love getting flushed." You'd be like, "Flush me, Jay, flush me."
That was like one of the parts where like I was staring at the screen. What's wrong with this scene?
I thought that was the one joke that makes me laugh.
There was
It's not. I think the reason the film falters is because it was rushed. They had to change a lot of things on the fly.
They changed a lot of casting. Famke Janssen was supposed to be the villain in it, and they ran into a lot of problems with her.
Which makes sense because she has the hair. She looks like Famke Janssen.
Yeah, so
Laura Flynn Boyle,
Laura Flynn Boyle, yeah.
The pros of this film, I like Laura Flynn Boyle. I am an alien in disguise.
I can totally buy that lockdown.
Okay, so Laura Flynn Boyle, it's interesting. It's not as interesting as the villains in the other series. Johnny Knoxville, not so much.
I like Johnny Knoxville.
They never really made that as believable as some of the, these things are only believable to a point. But that effect of the two heads, not at that Men in Black at its strongest. Patrick Warburton is funny, although you have to question the logic.
I like Patrick Warburton in anything, though. Yeah. He's just got great delivery.
If it's so hard to get into Men in Black as they established in the first film, how did this guy who's a dummy wind up getting in? I mean, that's a small logic thing. But I thought it moved well. It's not as well written as the previous film.
Absolutely not.
But I like it. I think if Men in Black was a 3.5-star film, I give this one 3 stars. I think it's a little underrated.
I can give Men in Black 3.5 stars. I think you're right.
Well, Men in Black, but the thing is, I mean, Tommy Lee Jones.
I can probably almost give Men in Black the first one 4 stars.
But Men in Black 2 has Tommy Lee Jones as a Postmaster General. Love it. And I love that whole sequence.
I think Tommy Lee Jones very much liked the character of Kay.
I love Rosario Dawson in this. So there's a lot about the film that I do like.
One of her early roles before she became a big star. She wasn't a big star when this movie
came out. I mean, it's the weakest, certainly, of the 3. Is it an outright disaster? No. That would be hard to say. But it's just, I don't know, it doesn't fit together as well as the other one. I don't know. It feels a little forced through most of it for me.
It does feel a little forced.
It feels a lot more like going for the paycheck than Men in Black 3 did.
Definitely did, yeah.
But I still think that everybody was really trying. I think this is a more successful attempt than the other 2 that we mentioned tonight. Let's move on to Men in Black 3.
No.
Okay, well, I'm curious how many people.
I think the audience would agree with me.
Well, no. Let's not play favorites. Audience, Men in Black 2 versus Ghostbuster 2. Which do you feel
No, I
is
want
a
to
better
play
film?
favorites. Who likes me more than Dave? No, bad. We're going Men in Black 3?
Men in Black 3. I love Men in Black 3.
I love
it almost as much as I love the first one. I think that the script is really brilliant. I love the energy. I think that Barry Sonnenfeld, as a director, did his best job on this. It's very... You have your best villain of the entire series with...
Who's the comedic actor? Yeah, Boris.
Right, the Flight of the Falcons. And what do you mean whatever Joe says? How dare you...
Mouthful of bliss.
We all support the mighty Joe.
Whatever Joe says. Hey, who are you? I love you. Let's get married.
Joe will surely be the emperor of the world as it crashes into the sun.
So there are brilliant sequences in Men in Black 3. The time jumping off, and the way that they staged that.
Through time. Yeah, that was really cool.
The way that they staged that, and
and a green screen, so much effort.
Well, I mean, they did a great job. In terms of text,
someone has to paint it, Joe.
Sure does.
This just happened
with the computer. This just happened. Let's be honest about it.
I mean, there was so many.
This just happened.
And
Matt just did this. And it's actually from the first movie.
Josh Brolin as Tommy Lee Jones is the best depiction I've seen of another actor taking on the young version of the older actor since Robert De Niro took on Marlon Brando from Godfather. I think that it's such.
I would not say that, but okay.
But okay, no, think about it. Tommy Lee Jones was. Josh Brolin was so good.
As the young Hercules, playing a young Kevin Sorbo.
I think that Josh Brolin did an amazing job.
Am I the only one who felt that way? Okay, fine.
Did an amazing job taking on what Tommy Lee Jones did, because Tommy Lee Jones plays a very specific character, and it was so impressive what he was able to do with that. I thought Griffin was great. That interesting wide-eyed character.
I agree with you. I'm going to agree with you on a lot of stuff, but do me a favor right now. No, keep going. I'm sorry.
Bill Hader's Andy Warhol, I thought was great.
Yes, Bill Hader was very good.
Bill Hader's great. Can we just give a shout out to him? I like him.
Bill Hader, shout out to you.
I love the fact
I met him on set.
How brilliant that this film is in 19. This film being set in 1969, the things that they were able to tie it into, the moon launch and the Mets winning the World Series. They did a lot of the great things with the chronology, with the baseball.
That was good.
And big hearty thumbs up. Almost as good as the original film. It's great that they were able to bring
the same tone of the original.
Great that I think for a film that takes place 14 years after the original, they did an amazing job.
Longer than that.
Recapturing. For a sequel that's so far removed from the original, I think they did an exceptionally.
In 2012.
Exceptionally good job.
The original came out in '98.
Yes, and the third one came out in 2012.
It did. Was that 14 years?
Okay,
that's still a long time.
Come back next week when we teach Joe math.
What did you gentlemen think of the movie?
Wait, I had a close-up. I want it back.
What did you gentlemen think of the movie?
No more close-ups for Joe.
No, Tim's close-up.
He can barely sit on the chair. He's setting a bad example for children and other people.
No children are up at this.
Men in Black 3 was a hell of a lot of fun. It was a good, fun movie. It had a lot of heart, which
a lot of good jokes
is indicative of the series, which is what makes it a huge hit. Josh Brolin, Tommy Lee Jones, Will Smith, they all do. And this is actually the first time Will Smith has actually had a hit, really, in a while.
A big hit, yeah.
And then he went right back to this gutter with After Earth.
Paul Guay is in the chat room, and he just pointed out that the original movie came out in 1997. Thank you, Paul.
Okay. So
the original film, so that's...
I'm not going to do the math with you, Joe. Yeah. Anyway, what was the point I was saying? Is this show over yet? Do I have to still talk? Oh, excellent. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm talking to the booth. Yeah, Men in Black 3. Great.
Okay. Be a little more specific.
I don't want to talk about movies anymore. Anything else going on in the world?
Okay, so we're gonna.
Did we review this movie once before?
We're gonna do this. We're gonna hit a quick commercial. When we come back, we're gonna get.
No, we're not gonna get a quick commercial. We got 5 minutes left.
It doesn't matter. We're owed a commercial.
No,
Go
to commercial.
Go to commercial. When we come back, it's going to be Joe's going to tell us about his experience on the set, what he thought of the film, and whatever Peppercorn is missing from his thoughts of it. We're going to finish up, and we're heading out to commercial right now. Come on back, ladies and gentlemen.
Transmission of lice occurs from being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Like catching a cold or a flu.
You have guaranteed peace of mind in every bottle of Got Lice because all of our products are completely natural
and organic,
but strong enough to cover all your lice removal needs while being safe and effective. Our professional technicians are specially trained with our exclusive proven technique to successfully comb out head lice. We come right to your home at your convenience.
Whenever you want us.
We bring everything needed to perform a successful and complete comb out while eliminating your head lice. And we leave you with our exclusive complimentary products to use for the next 10 days following our treatment.
For free.
Our technicians also check all family members who have been exposed to lice. Please visit us on our website today at gotlice.co or feel free to call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 646-257-0121.
You're so handsy.
Good evening and welcome back
right
to
there.
Nerdgasm. Tonight's exciting topic has been Men in Black 3 and other things. We discussed other things too. I'm supposed to finish up talking about Men in Black 3, although I have a complete brain stump on this one. So I'm just going to say it's a very delightful movie. Please go see it. There are people in it, and they like it. Let's throw it to Joe, who's going to talk about what it was like to work on Men in Black 3, which he mentions all the time.
What is it like? Explain to me like what it's like.
It was just extra. It was just extra work.
But what
it was to kind of nutshell it up. What happened was I went in for a cattle call essentially. Went into a cattle call in New York City. It was me. It was me, James Taffarelli. You know who convinced me to go to it actually? Jason Ibsen. Convinced me to go to it. He called me up like in 2 days or a day before and said you should go to this. Like blah blah blah. And I was like, I wasn't going to go, and then he talked me into it, so I went. And it was me, Jason Ibsen, James Taffarelli, and then two of the Gooligans guys. So it was Mike, no, not Mike. It was Sean and Rick, Mike.
So anyway, what was it like working on the film?
But I'm telling this story.
The audience doesn't know these people. No, do they?
Time to
I'm there with about 5 other people, and I go to the whole thing. And when you go up, it is kind of like reserved in the back of my head from when you do extra work. Whatever they say on whatever they ask you for, do that, but do a little bit more. So if they ask for you, do you weigh 150 pounds? Say I weigh 165 pounds. Or just do a couple. Are you at least 6 foot? I'm actually 6'3". So I kind of wrote that on there, and I got selected, and I took back and tried on 5 masks. Like it was like a plastic cutout of a face, and they were fitting because essentially they wanted to fit a mold for a certain face. They were casting for aliens, so they wanted to. Yeah, I met tons of people. Who's Craig Bumble?
Who did you meet that other than Jason Ibsen?
I'll get there. So I got casted. So I show up for set. First day I'm there for fitting. I get fitted for this big alien called Jellyhead, which was the picture that Dave showed of me in the Nerd Girl news. And I get this. That's a really cool costume. Get that on, and I also get fitted for 2 other costumes. Actually, one that I didn't get fitted for till the day of I was shooting. So I go to this place and I meet a lot of cool people, a lot of extra people. I meet a lot of people who do extra work all the time. Like you stand in line with those people, they're like, hey, I saw you in the other guys. It's like, you did? Like, I'm just sitting there like, Jesus Christ, I can't believe people just do this all the time. It was weird. But when I got the paycheck, I understood. But it was really cool because when I go down there, all the makeup guys were all makeup artists from Saturday Night Live. That was a fun fact. They all did makeup for Saturday Night Live. They were working during the day, and I said, what are you guys doing the rest of your day? He's like, we got to go to work. because I worked on Thursday or something like that, and they said, we got to do Saturday Night Live tonight. And I never once said, can you get me tickets? But as far as funny stories go, I have one funny story and a prominent story. The funny story is Barry Sonnenfeld would come to set. Who's that? Who the hell is
That's
talking?
you. On the screen.
That's me. That's Jellyhead. That was the main costume I did. That's the one that you can see me. I'm literally right behind Agent J in the third film when when Agent K is giving a eulogy. But one funny story is Barry Sonnenfeld kept coming to set in different costumes, and the funniest thing that he came in was he had like a cowboy suit, and he just showed up in it, all the time and everything like that.
Well, it's New York City. Why wouldn't you?
But the prominent story that I have about this, the one that always resonates with me, and this probably is me as an actor, is I remember I was on set, and they were doing a couple different takes of something. A couple different takes. And I never complained. I was up early. I didn't stay there. I was done by 7 o'clock. I didn't complain about anything. I had a great time all around. And they were doing a couple takes on something, and I guess it was dragging or something like that. And Will Smith was doing the takes. And I'll never forget this as long as I live. A man who, whether it hits or not, he's made a lot of money. He made a lot of bold choices early on in his career to kind of be taken seriously. He's definitely made his mark. Love him or hate him, he's made his mark on Hollywood. He'll be remembered. And to kind of hear him say this, I'm standing on the sidelines, and they're doing a couple different takes. And Barry says, we don't like that, we've got to do it again. And Will Smith stands up, and Will Smith does Muhammad Ali boxing in between takes all the time. And he just kind of looks up at the sky and says, this ain't easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it. Let's go again. I remember thinking, what a profound statement. Because it's very, very true. So that's my, I don't have a lot of funny stories, but that's my one prominent story. So if there was anything to go out on a humble note, I think it would be that. So take us away, Dave.
So what actor tried to grab your ass, though, on the set? That's what people really want to know, Joe. When you're wearing that big alien costume, I know it's a big turn on. Okay. So we're going to fit, that feels really weird, man. Oh.
Why are your hands so cold and clammy?
I don't know. Ask JoJo that.
You know what they say.
So, lovely JoJo. There's not enough love in his life. I think you need to warm him up a little bit, lovely JoJo.
Ask my girlfriend.
Ask my girlfriend why there's not enough warmth in my heart.
We can never conclude these things well.
See, we can riff for 20 minutes about this right now, but I don't want to piss off Matt.
We have never had a good closing.
See the camera pulling back right now?
Lovely JoJo, Dave isn't warm enough at home. I think you should address that about him tonight.
Warm him up.
Like call him right in 20 minutes. You call
stuff him into the oven.
Call JoJo. You have to call Dave.
Our technical director's like putting his jacket on because we're taking. Okay, so that is it for this week's edition of NERDGASM. Come back next week when we're going to be taking on Spider-Man, and it's going to be great. Come back, ladies and gentlemen.
Eat review.